How's everyone doing? This is Alex, and we are back at it with another presentation into the freight industry. All right, if you're an owner op, there's one question that's probably always on your mind. How do I make more money? Well, today we're going to tackle one of the biggest debates out there, switching from a dry van to a flatbed. Is that promise of higher pay actually legit, or is it all just hype? Okay, let's just jump right in with the number that makes everybody's ears perk up. Just look at this. On the spot market, we're seeing an average difference of about 51 cents a mile. Now, you know as well as I do, when you're clocking thousands of miles every single week, that's not just pocket change. That is a potential game changer for your business. So the big question is, why? Where's that extra money coming from? It's not just a fluke, believe me. There are some really solid reasons shippers are willing to shell out more for a flatbed. You know, it really boils down to two things, what you can carry and the work you put in. A flatbed, it can haul all that oversized, super heavy, just plain weird freight that a dry van can't even dream of touching. But it's more than that. Shippers are paying a premium for your sweat, for you to be out there strapping, chaining, and tarping to make sure their expensive cargo gets there in one piece. And hey, where you run makes a huge difference. If you're based in the Southeast or the Midwest, you're pretty much sitting in the flatbed goldmine. You've got all this heavy industrial and construction work, and that demand is what keeps those rates the highest in the whole country, year after year. But, and this is a big but, you got to understand the trade-off here. This quote says it all. Yeah, the ceiling for flatbed pay is way higher, but the floor is also a whole lot lower. Dry van is your steady Eddie, right? Consistent work. Flatbed is more like feast or famine. You're going to be absolutely killing it during construction season, but come winter, things can slow down to a crawl. You have to be ready for that. Okay, so you can't just wake up one morning and decide to chase those big flatbed rates. Not so fast. Getting that payoff means you've got to make a pretty serious upfront investment in all the right gear. So what are we actually talking about here? Let's pretend you're starting from absolute zero, trailer aside, and make a shopping list. What's it going to cost to get you rolling? All right, first up, tarps. And let me tell you, these are not the flimsy little things you get at the hardware store. We are talking about heavy-duty industrial-grade monsters that can weigh like 80 pounds a piece. You're going to need at least a couple of them, so bam, there's $1,000 right off the bat. Next, you need all the gear to actually secure the load, right? Your straps, your chains, your binders, a good starter kit that can handle whatever they throw at you. Yeah, that's going to run you another $800. Easy. And then there's the headache rack. This is all about safety and, honestly, sanity. It protects your cab and gives you somewhere to hang all that heavy gear. This is absolutely not something you can skip, and a quality one is going to add another $2,000 to your shopping cart. So let's just add it all up. You've got your tarps, your securement kit, that headache rack, plus a few other odds and ends, and you are looking at somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000. And remember, that's all before you've earned a single penny on your first flatbed load. But look, the investment isn't just about cash, it's about sweat equity. Switching to flatbed, it's a completely different way of life. It fundamentally changes what your day-to-day looks and feels like. Think of it like this. You're trading waiting time for working time. As a dry van hauler, you know the drill. You sit for hours at a dock, right? With a flatbed, that waiting time turns into work time. You're out there in the yard, throwing straps, cranking binders, and wrestling with those giant tarps. Man, this quote from a driver just hits the nail on the head. Flatbed keeps you moving, but dry van keeps you waiting. The key thing to realize is you're not choosing between an easy job and a hard job. You're choosing your challenge. Do you want the mental drain of waiting around, or the physical toll of putting in the hard work yourself? Now, the good news is you do get paid for some of this extra work. Shippers will often add on what's called tarp pay, usually an extra $50 to $100. But you got to be real with yourself. Is $100 worth an hour of back-breaking work, maybe when it's pouring rain or freezing cold? Only you can answer that. All right, let's get to the part everyone's been waiting for, the bottom line. We've talked about the higher rates, the upfront costs, the physical work, but when the dust settles, how does this actually affect your net profit? What's left in your pocket? So to get a clear picture, we've crunched some numbers. We're going to run a side-by-side comparison of a typical year for a dry van versus a flatbed, and we'll base it on both running about 120,000 miles. Okay, check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. Yeah, your costs are higher with a flatbed. You're going to spend more on fuel, a bit more on insurance, and you got to factor in equipment upkeep. But look at that gross revenue. That huge jump completely wipes out the extra costs. And then some. We're talking about a potential net profit increase of over $50,000 a year. That's huge. Now, an extra 50 grand a year, that sounds amazing, right? But the numbers on a spreadsheet don't tell you the whole story. The real decision here is about you. Is that financial boost worth the completely new reality of the job? So, who should say yes? Well, the switch is probably a great move for you if one, you're driven by that bigger paycheck. Two, you're already in a hot market like the Southeast or Midwest. And three, you'd honestly rather be physically working than just sitting around waiting. But on the flip side, you really have to think twice if you're not prepared for a few things. Can you float that big upfront equipment cost? Is your body ready for a much more intense physical job day in and day out? And are you disciplined enough to manage your money through that feast or famine cycle, saving during the good times to get through the slow ones? And that really is the question, isn't it? An extra 50 grand a year is on the table. The numbers show it's possible, but it is absolutely not free money. You will earn every last cent of it with your own sweat through smarter planning and by taking on a little more risk. So the question is simple. Is it worth it to you?